Welcome again to another interview at the National Drum Fair. I'm with Rob. Lovely, thank you for this interview. Would you like just to introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
Right, okay, I'm Rob Townsend. At the moment, for the last 28 years, I've played with a guy called Paul Jones in a group called the Blues Band, and also with Paul Jones and some of the other original members in a group called the Manfords, who were originally called Manfred Mann. But I started back in the late 60s, in 1967, with a group called Family. They were reasonably successful, lasted for about 5-6 years, and then I joined a group called Medicine Head and had a couple of hits with them, and then it just went, more or less it rolled on into that session work. I ended up playing with like Dwayne Eddy. I toured with him a couple of times, and blues guys like Memphis Slim, and ended up in bands with people like Andy Summers. Him and I worked together with a guy called Kevin Ayres for many years, and then eventually, in about 1981, I joined the blues band and carried on from there. The Manfred thing is good because roughly every 18 months we do a big tour. We bring along guests who we back. So, you know, through that I've ended up playing with sort of the likes of Colin Blunston out of the Zombies, Alan Price, Paul Young, oh, you name it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty varied.
Good, excellent. Right, what's the best thing about the National Drum Fair?
The best thing about it, it's lovely to see people that I don't see from the year before. A lot of drummers and people that are working, and it's just, if you have a love of drums, then come in here and see some of the classic old drums. It's just, you know, somebody said, "Have you bought anything?" And I said, "No," because I could fill my car up and just, you know, there's so much I want to buy.
Yeah.
You know, and you keep saying, "Oh, perhaps I should." No, I'll go for that one. Oh no, that's a nice snare drum. And it's, you know, the choice is just phenomenal. But it's all the old kits.
Yeah. So, have you got any vintage and custom gear at the moment?
A couple of bits and pieces. I got a kit, a lovely little Gretsch kit from late 60s, 12, 14, 20-inch bass drum. That's the only one. I got various snare drums. I got a Slingland Radio King from the 40s. I got old Rogers snare drums and Ludwig snare drums. But as for the whole kit, it's just the old one is really just the Gretsch.
Right. Lovely.
And it breaks my heart of all the ones I got rid of.
What's the best thing you've seen here today?
The best thing I've seen. It's difficult, you can't pinpoint it. I mean, there's a couple of Slingland drum kits that, you know, I'd give my right arm for, and then I couldn't play them. There's no actual thing, it's just, the whole fair is lovely because you get to know the guys on the stalls. I know, I pick up their cards and that, so I know if I need anything, and I can, and as I say, old friends.
Fantastic.
People like Bob Henry and other old people.
Thank you. What do you think the Drum Fair actually brings to its audience?
What do I think
The Drum Fair brings to its audience?
brings to its audience? Well, it gives a lot of younger people the opportunity to get bargains. You know, if the drum kits nowadays, unless you're in a position where, you know, you've got to deal with one of the major companies, they're so expensive. And I think what a lot of younger players need to learn is that they see what's in the catalogue at the moment, you know, and it's X thousand or whatever. You could pick up good drums, and here as well, some good cymbals, a lot cheaper. You know, the kits probably don't look as flashy as some of them, but because of the retro thing at the moment, you know, you go in there and I saw one kit by a make that I actually used to endorse, a Heyman, and it was £250. Now you come on, you couldn't go wrong. It was in good nick as well. I'd play it.
Is there any suggestions for what you'd like to see here at the fair?
What I'd like to see?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I go along with the idea if it's not broken, why try and fix it? I know what you're trying to say, but you know, you've been out there today, you've seen, you know, the young drummer of the year. I mean, I had the opportunity of who I had never ever seen, although I'd met him, Eric Delaney a couple of years ago. So you can come along and see the up and coming, you know, stars, but also every now and again some of the ones from yesteryear. So I don't know how you can really improve it. I mean, it's a good venue.
It's a happy mix.
I'm very happy with it. It's a good venue. It's run by good people, and you know, parking and that is. I don't have a problem with it.
Fantastic. If you had to relive one gig or event, which one would it be?
Oh God.
There's many, I suspect. But
On reflection, I don't know. It's really difficult because when you're doing the gig at the time, it's just a gig. It's a gig. Then years later, you know, you suddenly realise how big that gig was. I was recently doing a concert in the. Excuse me, I got the flu at the moment. I was in a concert in the Isle of Wight. I was walking around the streets and they were doing a lot of memorabilia from the Isle of Wight with Jimi Hendrix and Bob Dylan back in 1970, 69 I think the other one was. I think the Dylan one was 69 and the Hendrix one was 1970. And there was a set of postcards and I went in there and I bought these sort of postcards, souvenir postcards. The guy started to tell me who the people were and I said, I know. I was there, and he said, "Oh, you managed to get in, did you?" And I said, "No, I was actually performing." And when you look back at that, that was 100,000 people.
yeah.
And to go on stage and play to that many people, and all you're worried about is, goodness, I've got a monitor, because monitors were quite rare in those days, and all this kind of thing. And then walking backstage, you know, there was Miles Davis there, and Hendrix, and, you know, at the time you don't think anything about it. It's a gig. But then suddenly, you know, years later, you start thinking, wow, when you start seeing footage of, you know, news reports on the telly, you know, archived material. And I played, another amazing one was, I did those with this group Family, and also with Family I did the Hyde Park with the Rolling Stones, when Brian Jones had just died. And quite recently I saw a lot of sort of footage on the TV from that, and you think, God, yeah, I didn't realise it was that big, and all, you know. So it's not one specific one actually sticks, it's just, you suddenly see something, you think, wow, that must have been the best. And then you see something, I say, oh, that was better, you know.
Fantastic. What are you currently playing on at the moment? What's your gear at the moment?
I use DW. I tend to vary, I pick the kit depending on the circumstances of the gig. At the moment I'm doing a gig with the Manfreds, Paul Jones, and it's, apart from the hits, they do a lot of jazzier stuff, the Crusaders, Horace Silver stuff and all that, as well as the hits. So I'm using a little DW 2014, I had one made, 12-inch 14, 6.5 wood snare, with the blues band, which is a lot more rockier at times and heavier blues stuff. I've been using a 24 by 14 bass drum, 13, I don't think it's a 9, I think it's 10, 13, 10, and a 16, I think it's 14. So, I know, again, the snare drums vary on, you know, on the gig you're doing. Likewise, cymbals as well, you know, you use a different right depending on what your requirements are.
Who's your inspiration?
Who's the inspiration? Goodness. When I was, there was lots. I mean, when I was coming up, when I was sort of, I don't know, 13, 14, I was very keen on jazz. But then I heard a guy called Tony Meehan with the Shadows, and I thought, I like that, I like what he's playing. And then I was fortunate enough to go and see Joe Morello with the Dave Brubeck Quartet, and I found out that Meehan had been influenced by Morello, and Morello was a big influence on me. And then eventually, in later tunes, I eventually saw Buddy Rich when he came over. And then I turned professional. Again, I saw Rich a couple of times at Hammersmith, Oud Unit it was then, and I think it was Croydon or Fairfield Halls in London. And then, fortunately, I went to see him at Ronnie Scott's, and I was introduced to him by the record company, so I actually met him, and he was a big influence on me, you know. But again, you know, he was probably one of my sort of heroes. But then I also managed to see the likes of Elvin Jones, a lot of the jazz greats, Art Blakey, who I loved Art Blakey. So it's a sort of Rich, I would imagine. Rich and Morello were my main inspirations.
Brilliant, brilliant. Have you got any advice to people actually starting out, or basically want to improve their playing at all?
How to improve their playing?
Yeah, they're just starting out. What advice would you give?
It's difficult. You can sit at a practice pad, and I still do, every day, and you can get your limbs working. You can learn your rudiments, but unless you get on the kit and get around that, but unless you get out and get into a playing environment where you're actually having to play with other musicians. So apart from just concentrating on what you're doing, you're having to listen to what they're doing so you can compliment them and sort of become a member of the group. I used to know a guy who, near where I lived, and every time I saw him in the pub or something like that, he was about 19. I'd say, what have you been doing? Oh, I've been doing da-da-da, Flam Power Devils, da-da-da-da. And then he'd stand on the bar of the pub and he'd done that. I said, that's great, wow. And then we had a charity gig in the pub. And he got up and he put his earphones on and he played along to a track. And then a lot of musicians got up and had a jam, and he couldn't play. He'd learned in his living room how to play along with that, how to do his rudiments. But he hadn't had the sort of fortunate enough to play with other guys. It's a different thing. When you get on a stage, you're having to play for an audience and for other musicians, not just yourself. So get out of the
practice room.
Get out of the practice room and get gigging as soon as you can.
That's brilliant advice, to be honest. Now, have you got any clean, funny stories you can tell us?
Clean, funny stories? Yeah. Funnily enough, I went to a book launch. There's a book just come out by a really good, very well-known bass player called Mo Foster. And he asked me for a story. This is months ago, and I told him one, and I'd forgotten all about it. And then he printed it in this book, and I still remembered it. I was doing with the blues band, I was doing a big festival about 3 years ago, in Belgium, 10, 15,000 people. And I was using a high kit supply. And the road manager came in the dressing rooms and he said, the band's finished, your kit's on the riser when you want to have a look at it. So I thought, I might as well do it now. And I went to walk out on the stage, and there's 15,000 people there, and I thought, I'm not going to stand there in front of them, tuning a set of drums and banging away. And then suddenly I noticed that there was a keyboard player on the right with stacks of synthesizers, and he was doing his gear, and he going, and I thought, well, if he can do it, I'll do it. Yeah. So I go on the stage and I start time do bang, 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 bang. I've been doing this for 2 or 3 minutes, and in the end I felt one of the stage crew tugging my jacket, and I said, what's the matter? And he said, is there any chance you could do the drums when he's finished his set? The keyboard player was a free-form, avant-garde keyboard player. And I was sort of tuning the drums while he's going, and I got off and I was really embarrassed, and I got in the dressing room and the guitarist turned around and I said, I wouldn't worry about it. They probably thought you were part of the band.
Brilliant. Right. If you had a time machine, which era of music and drumming would you go back to?
Oof. I think I was very lucky that I was allowed to sort of stop playing in the 60s, where music became music, not jazz, big band, rock, or blues. What I just said about the Isle of Wight, I was on there, Jimi Hendrix was on there, Miles Davis was on there, and goodness knows, Richie Havens, who was acoustic player.
Yeah.
So that was a lucky period. I mean, I love big bands, so the period of sort of Basie and Ellington, I would love to have been there and then. I'd love to have played with them, but I don't think I had the ability. Certainly haven't got the ability anymore to play with those kind of guys. But that sort of the 50s and 60s and the late 40s, and when it was all evolving, you know, the jazz and then the pop music becoming, you know, more, I was going to say serious, but more musical probably.
Right. Lovely. One last question. You're having a dinner party. You can invite 4 guests, dead or alive. Who will they be?
Oh, they've got to be drummers, haven't they?
No. It says 4 guests. Whoever you want.
Buddy Rich, obviously. I suppose Joe Morello. Oscar Peterson. Cam Basie.
Well, Rob Townsend, thank you ever so much for this interview.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time on another NDF interview. Thank you.
Thank you.